Breaking news. Official guidance from the Department of Defense states that 300 million people will die from this Wuhan supervirus. Many people have seen the report for themselves. It's interesting to note here that the GDP goes from 40, 50 trillion to not even 1 trillion, 921 billion dollars. What could impact an economy? What could impact a nation like that? Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to find out as this Wuhan supervirus continues to rampage around the world. Nearly 200,000 cases. Italy has 20,000 plus cases. It's starting to look like China out there. And they've got nearly as many deaths, official deaths, as the Chinese already. And it's just begun. How many people tuned in to the Sunshine Crew out there at the White House? They did a 2-hour grandstand promising everybody money, honey. And, you know, they're just going to try and bribe you for your vote. You know, they totally screwed America, let this thing in. They certainly didn't ramp up anything. Not hospitals, not ventilators, not chloroquine, or perhaps any other medications that might work. They've totally been caught with their pants down, seemingly on purpose. Part of the extermination program, ladies and gentlemen. These people are out to get you. Never forget it. How can we forget?
And when it got down to the plane is 10 miles out, the young man also said to the vice president, "Do the orders still stand?" And the vice president turned and whipped his neck around and said, "Of course the orders still stand."
Of course the orders still stand, ladies and gentlemen. This is a new 9/11. They've done this on purpose. And nobody should forget that. No matter what they say, no matter what they do, we know who let this virus in. And there's nothing else to say about it, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get into the big news. Let's not forget that the ports are empty. The factories are about to shut down. The warehouses are basically emptying as well. It's only a matter of time before you realize how bad it's going to get out there. Continue to maintain your supplies. Get as much as you can out there, but don't do the Black Friday sheeple at Costco. You don't want to get reinfected or doubly infected with this airborne AIDS weaponized strain from China, ladies and gentlemen. Now, of course, the Chinese are to blame, but so is this administration. And they were working together since the beginning, trying to rein in the dissidents, if you will. We'll get into that as well as the latest stats, which are rather interesting. You can't see the countries anymore, but Italy up on top, 31,000 cases, 3,500 new. Total deaths, 2,500. I mean, they're just about to eclipse the Chinese in deaths in just one country. And everybody else is soon to follow. But again, this is the beginning. And if you're paying attention to the news, you know, it's gone from yesterday it was this is going to last till August. Today, the British press are like this is going to last 18 months. And tomorrow or the next day or perhaps next week, we're going to find out that this is going to be permanent forever, ladies and gentlemen. Anyways, we're not sure what the video guy has done. Once again, sabotage, ladies and gentlemen. But the numbers are rather, huge. Spain is up at 11,700 cases over here, and Germany 10,000 cases. Remarkably, they've got very few deaths, and this is becoming like the Olympics. Who's going to be the survivor? Which country is going to fare the best? And we've been looking at, what are the Germans doing? Why do they have such a low death rate? And they've just got a massive surveillance network. They've been doing testing like right away. And they've got tons of hospitals. They're just on the ball. Not only that, but it seems like they've got some kind of medication called chemostate mesylate, which is really interesting. We're also hearing reports that chloroquine is showing its fruits, but this is unverified. They might just be saying that to make people feel better. The video, of course, on the left is the mass liquidation of people. This is our future. This is part of the China syndrome. People should pay attention. Ladies and gentlemen, they're going to come and force, liquidate, extract you from your residence. And at first, they're just going to try and pick people off at the checkpoints. The total lockdown is coming, the curfew is coming, and the like. But anyways, what are the Germans doing? We need to know. Of course, Trump tried to buy out, some kind of vaccine company, NextVax or something like that. And they actually got one of the main scientists to jump on board, another von Braun, if you will. So, obviously the Germans are doing something right, and that's really the country to pay attention to. But South Korea and, Taiwan, Japan have been able to keep their numbers fairly stable thanks to surveillance, bioweapon surveillance, something that, we just couldn't dream of. We couldn't dream of bioweapon surveillance. We've got a bioweapons program, but we got no bioweapon surveillance. What's up with that, ladies and gentlemen? What's up with that if it's not sabotage? I know sabotage when I see it. I deal with the video guy every day. We have to hack the matrix every day to try to put up the news. The news that NBC and Fox and the like won't show you. We know what sabotage is. We know when somebody's throwing a wrench in the works. And that's exactly what this administration has been doing since the beginning. They threw General Flynn to the wolves, basically day one. They let Hillary go, locked up Assange, rolling out the death towers, didn't do shit about the vaccines, or the fluoride, or the GMOs, or the pesticides, or the chemtrails, or the fracking, or the Gladio B events. In fact, they genocided the Kurds and invaded Syria based on a Gladio B chemical attack on innocent women and children. So you want to talk about precedent. You want to talk about track record. You should be afraid. You should be very afraid of this administration. Republican, Democrat, Independent, it doesn't matter. You should be very afraid of these people from 666 Fifth Avenue. Very afraid of these people from New Babylon. What was the video guy doing there, ladies and gentlemen? Will we ever know the answer to that question? Lots of videos of forced extractions, goon squads. Prepare for the final stand, the last stand. It's coming. And either you're going to have a brick or you're going to have something else, ladies and gentlemen. And look, nobody can force you to pull the trigger. Just like nobody can force you to go to those FEMA camps unless you want to. And most people will be begging, to go in the coming weeks. A couple weeks ago, there's just no way people would have accepted a lockdown. But pretty soon they'll be begging for it. In fact, we're seeing, lockdowns in San Francisco, Seattle, New York, more or less, and the like. And, many countries around the world. I mean, that's just become the new thing. And they don't want to really talk about the timeline. They don't want to talk about specifics. They just want to talk about, quote unquote, public safety. And so they're going to lock everything down to keep you safe. They're going to have you shelter in place to keep you safe. But that's been part of the plan. That's how they're going to liquidate you. Starve you out, bury you alive in your buildings. Coronavirus cases in the UK begin to skyrocket, and they were like at 10, 20 for the longest time. They didn't want to budge. All of a sudden they got a couple thousand, but they're going to get hit the worst, pretty much. their healthcare system was already in shambles before this began. You'd hear the horror stories of people, just left to rot in the emergency rooms, ambulances that would show up the next day. No kidding. So, not to mention they've had record flooding. This virus loves humidity, it loves pollution, it loves cold weather, and it loves evildoers, just like most viruses. And, it's times like these when you look at things like, the bubonic plague, the Spanish flu, and you look at, where it came from, where it went, what did it do, how long did it last, what was the nature of the infection. Very similar stories, in fact. The bubonic plague was, of course, an airborne bacterium that would spread from person to person. And it would start with fever-like symptoms, or flu-like symptoms, we should say, and then progress to a systemic infection. And that's just the beginning of the story. Let's continue on with the news before we have people pissing in their diapers. We don't need any of that. And just a reminder, waste management, hygiene, cleanliness is going to make a big difference when it comes to surviving this disease. New York City has 814 confirmed cases. It's like a diamond princess without borders, ladies and gentlemen. Here is a borough by borough breakdown. Queens, Manhattan, Brooklyn, the Bronx, Staten Island. So it's everywhere. It's in all the major boroughs. You can't imagine what it's going to be like. Here's an update from Fox News in Texas. For some reason there's no image, but some of the patients in critical care announced today are patients in their 20s and 30s with no underlying conditions. The Chinese lied about the nature of this virus since the very beginning. We saw little children in body bags, but they never, they never talked about that. Not in their news, not in our news. Here's a little resume of how we got here, ladies and gentlemen. I think it's important that everybody hears this for themselves. Hater or no hater, here we go.
The coronavirus. This is their new hoax.
We have it totally under control. It's one person coming in from China.
One day it's like a miracle, it will disappear.
And we only have 15 people and they're getting better.
I think we're doing a really good job in this country at keeping it down. Anybody that needs a test can have a test. And the tests are all perfect.
This blindsided the world. I don't take responsibility at all.
The tests are just perfect. And 3 weeks later,
coronavirus. This is their new hoax.
The video guy. And, 3 weeks later, after the states basically, forced their way through the red tape and started conducting their own tests, we're starting to get real numbers. But we're still hearing about all sorts of problems with the tests. And they're picking, like, the most painful test. An oral nasal specimen. They're basically running a plumber's snake up your nose into the back of your throat, where other countries are just swabbing the cheeks and they're doing it just fine. You just have to wonder, what these people are really thinking over there if it isn't plotting your demise. I think that should be very obvious to people. I think, most of the conservatives really need to get beyond the fact that Trump is your only conservative choice out there as far as a presidential candidate. The truth be told here, this guy is a Judas in disguise, and he'll tell you what you want to hear. Everything's perfect, everything's fine, but in fact, it's worse, much, much worse than that. Again, according to Department of Defense insiders, the official narrative here is 300 million dead in the next couple years. A kill rate that must be nearly 80%. Will they stop it before then? Will they allow it to come back? I don't think there's going to be much choice. From what we're hearing, there'll be no vaccine for this virus. And nobody will ever get immunity, long-term immunity to this virus. It's like airborne AIDS. And eventually, it'll get you. It'll get everybody for the most part. Some people will have, genetic immunity to this virus. And we're learning that A blood groups are more affected than O blood groups. How original. How original. Who are these O negative people? And we're going to find out. We're going to find out how well that actually holds true. But according to initial reports, that's the case. Of course, there's a lot less O negatives to test. So with their initial findings. So we'll have to see. We'll keep an eye on it. But it wouldn't be surprising. Any case, let's move on with the news. Of course, this is another 9/11. They've let these planes in.
When it got down to the plane is 10 miles out, the young man also said to the vice president, "Do the orders still stand?" And the vice president turned and whipped his neck around and said, "Of course the orders still stand. Have you heard anything to the contrary?"
So, they tried to cover everything up. 9/11, all of the other Gladio B events, their eugenics programs. And either you're going to choose to believe the lies on television, or you're going to choose to wake up and act accordingly. What can be done, really, ladies and gentlemen, we're about to find out. Everybody's going to be put to the test with these goon squads, with these checkpoints, these FEMA camps, and of course, with their Zyklon C. C for coronavirus. How's everybody doing out there? We're hacking the Matrix. How many people watched the Sunshine Report from the White House? They're like, oh yeah, we're going to beat this thing and everybody's going to get $1,000, right? And people are like, yeah. And all across the world, when they're hearing their imperial masters speak, like, they're wartime presidents and they're going to mobilize the entire weight of the government to arrest the virus. People are like cheering it on, like, yeah, go get him. Go get him, Mr. President. Go get him, Mr. Chancellor. Go get him, Mr. Prime Sinister. Yeah, go get him. Send the army, And what we're learning now is that, well, we can't arrest the virus, but we can arrest the people that are suspected of having the virus. That's about as good as it gets, isn't it? And so, yeah, come on into your testing center. Fill out the form, put your name, your address, your phone number, and we'll be in touch. Don't call me, we'll call you, ladies and gentlemen. The new map. The new map is here. And it says that, well, New England area is pretty screwed. Boston to Philadelphia. We got the West Coast totally gone. And, most of the eastern half of the U.S. is probably going to be gone. And why is that? Because this is the most polluted half. If you look at all of the metrics as far as, air pollution, water pollution, all of that, these guys live in a different planet for the most part. And so we expect that the only states to really have a chance are probably going to be the ones that have less pollution and are a little less, Sodom and Gomorrah, which is probably going to be, something like this. This is going to be the survivor, zone for the most part, and this is going to be the kill zone. Now, I think there'll be exceptions. So far, West Virginia isn't reporting a whole lot of cases, but they may not be doing a whole lot of testing out there. So we're going to have to just, hold out for the best in West Virginia. And of course, you can hope that places like Kentucky, Tennessee, might be okay. But of course, with cities like Memphis, they're screwed. Every big city is screwed. They just don't know it yet. And the problem here is that they've waited so long now that, people have basically escaped the big cities and have, sought refuge in smaller towns. So chances are by now just about every place is infected, and it's going to have to get back, people are going to have to get back to the medieval ages a little bit if they want to survive. I recommend everybody check out, what they did during the plagues to survive. The bubonic plague, the London plague, every major city has had their version of it. And basically they go door to door, they check out if anybody's infected, showing symptoms, and if they do, they seal them in, they put a big red cross on it, and that's the end of the story. Buried alive. Exactly what we're seeing, essentially 1,500 years later. Same idea. They're going door to door, they're figuring out who's got the plague, and then they're, marking it and sealing it shut. That's exactly what you can expect in every country. That's the way it's been done for over 1,000 years. It ain't going to change now. And, that's why it's important to understand history, because it repeats itself quite often enough. Now, with this current epidemic, it's synthetic in nature, with a synthetic weaponized virus, a doomsday virus. And so the numbers are just going to be, through the roof. This is, going to be much, much worse than the Black Death, if you will. And, well, we're not going to crack a joke about the inner cities. Wuhan is still on lockdown 2 months later. And, every major city is going to basically face this situation. And at first, they'll be fighting back, trying to contain it, and it'll only look like, 5 or 10% of the people are ill. But it'll always be 5 or 10%. And it'll just keep whittling away at people. Not to mention, the dark side, the dark forces that unleash this virus are going to be, trying to augment it through, energy weapons, air pollution, disinfectants. I suppose this would be a decent time to remind everybody that fresh air 24/7 is your best friend right now. A lot of people are going to be wanting to spray disinfectant everywhere, thinking they're going to kill the virus, but in fact, you're going to make your residence into a gas chamber, and that will irritate your lungs, and that will accelerate this disease. So it's very important that people don't do that. So we got the MASH set up. I suppose we'll say one more thing. You should disinfect the bathrooms and the kitchen, once a day, but your living quarters, you should try to do the minimum as far as spraying any type of organic volatile compound. Perfume, scented candles, deodorants, sprays, hairspray, you name it. Fresh air, bitches. You need to learn it. And so yeah, we got MASH hospitals now being set up, kind of like a decontamination triage type of thing. And it's only going to get worse as the hospitals are saturated. We're learning about camps being erected as we speak. We're not getting a lot of footage of that, of course. This is the new map, right? So it's like, full-blown measles, chickenpox, smallpox, Spanish flu, Black Death, pick your poison. Nearly 200,000 cases. And that escalated rather quickly. It wasn't that long ago that we were at 80,000 cases and they were all in China. Look at the world now. And, look, we've been talking about this for 2 months. You know that the intelligence community and the CDC have known about this for even longer than that. And they had, you know, if they couldn't contain it, which may have been difficult to do, they could have at least ramped up supplies, hospitals, ventilators. They could have, you know, done something to warn people to get supplies. They could have started to, you know, redirect, some factories to do things that the Chinese have been doing for us over the years. They've done none of that. It's like they've been running around high on drugs, naked, you know, partying like rock stars. And it's like, oh, virus, shit. Yeah, well, look, we'll give you some money. How much you need? $1,000? That good? Will that shut you up? $1,000? I mean, they're going to ruin the world, and they're going to give people $1,000. You know? It's incredible. Look, when, you know, they've killed every tree, every fish, you know, every animal on this planet, what are you going to eat? Money, money can't buy you everything. Money can't buy you love. Remember that song? It used to mean something. According to reports, blood type A is more susceptible to serious disease. According to this study, we'll have to see if that pans out. Could be a statistical anomaly. What else we got? We're posting the latest numbers as they come through on our website and on our Twitter feed. Be sure to bookmark our website, stfnreport.com. We're hearing that, they're planning to shut everybody down, everybody's pages down. Once this thing really kicks off, we'll update our new coordinates on our website. So we broadcast every day. If you see that we've, disappeared, check out our website, because they want you to forget about this broadcast, ladies and gentlemen. What else we got? The Paris lockdown. So they're trying to clear the streets, but it's a difficult situation out there, to say the least. And every major city is going to have its challenges when it comes to, maintaining quarantines. And eventually, they'll have to bring out the army. They'll be like, look, people were outside enjoying the fresh air. No, they got to go back into their gas chambers. And so, eventually we'll see, armed troops out there enforcing the full lockdown. And they'll be like, oh, it's for your safety. We don't want everybody to be infected. But the truth is, everybody's been infected for the last, couple weeks. And, at first there's the acute infection, which seems like the flu or bronchitis. And then it becomes a systemic infection. And that's something that they're not telling people, but there's numerous reports on that. We've covered those stories, those news stories before. That's now part of the knowledge base. You can scroll through our, Twitter feed to find the links to those studies. But it starts off as an acute infection, and then it becomes systemic, and people relapse like herpes, and it attacks the nervous system. It attacks the heart. It attacks the kidneys. As well as the lungs. And so we recommend that people start shopping around for a detox elixir from the organic herb store, and try to find most of the herbs that are listed in the video description. Of course, the video description on the ScrewTube channel. If you're watching this on Fakebook, find the coordinates on our website, stfnreport.com. But you really want to get those ingredients if you're starting to feel the relapse, and or if you're going through the acute infection phase. And we've got a list of it somewhere. Must have turmeric, thyme, rosemary, chicory, ginger root, artichoke, burdock, extracts of those. And if you can find a detox potion that you mix in with water with all of that, you'll be a happy camper. Until they can, distribute, something better. And we'll just have to see if it gets better. as far as their solutions. There's still no verifying if chloroquine or the other things that they're doing actually work, if those people wouldn't have gotten better anyways. And so, it's still too early in the, in the discovery of this. Out trying to clear out the stores, trying to clear out the streets. Maybe we'll play a little bit of this. But she. So it's getting pretty serious, but nothing too harsh just yet. This is day 1 of the lockdown. They're trying to condition people, baby step them into hyper normalization. What is this? Oh yeah, more of the same. How about this? How did the Chinese let the coronavirus escape their lab? This is from a Swiss publication. You can translate it on the internet if you want to know more. Pandemic at Paris. There was an actual arrest. Let's listen in. So we saw something similar yesterday from London. This is happening. The Wuhan syndrome, the China syndrome is happening in the Western world. It's going to happen in America. You're going to see people, getting arrested for being suspected or, violating some kind of emergency law. And of course, when they declared the state of emergency a couple days ago, from the White House, on the lawn there, they basically suspended constitutional rights. They invoked the Stafford Act. It was, all of the national emergency protocols for continuity and the like. And, they just kind of put a little ribbon on it and were like, oh, yeah, we're just going to declare a state of emergency. Big words, But what they've done is huge, and it basically opens Pandora's box, if you will. The U.S. Department of Fear. They're our favorite department. Overnight, our northern neighbor went from allowing flights from all pandemic hotspots to closing its borders to all non-citizens. It took Germany and Canada until yesterday to ban incoming flights from China. No shit. So it makes you wonder, what is going on with some of these countries out there. But it's the same thing everywhere. We talked about how, Trump, kind of did the Freudian slip in a press conference. He's like, oh yeah, I shut all of these flights way ahead of schedule. I shut down all of these flights way ahead of schedule. You can check that out in the video archives. And, this is all part of Project Cypher. It's all part of the Agenda 21, the Georgia Guidestones. That's important to remember. This is another 9/11. So they're going to come out, and they're going to tell you what you want to hear. Like, they got this plan. They're going to pay you. They've got, FEMA's on the case, But they're exterminating you. And it's total Stockholm syndrome out there. People are like, oh yeah, thank you, my imperial master. Thank you for releasing the virus and pretending to save us. It's so wonderful. I hope you enjoy the vaccine. They got the vaccine. All these, world leaders, they got the vaccine at the Bilderberg meeting or the Davos meeting. And, they're just letting everybody run around like ants or whatever. And they're getting off on the fact that everybody's lining up to Costco, trying to fill up a little shopping cart full of supplies. They've got their deep underground military bases, their bunkers full of supplies, stocked up for years, private jets to get them there. Like, the movie 2012, they got their system set up, and they're watching all the sheeple just like go to Costco for, contaminated water and toilet paper. That's how these people operate. They get off on this kind of stuff. Hardcore. What happened to the video guy? What the totally unbelievable. If you're just joining us, Department of Defense official guidance says 300 million people are going to die. Ladies and gentlemen, are you prepared for the Hunger Games? Are you prepared for what's coming? We've tried to get people prepared, but there is no preparing for what's coming. You're all going to have to be hunters out there if you want to survive. And it's, chances are a post-apocalyptic world is coming our way. Like, all of the sci-fi flicks and the like. And look, there's really no excuse for letting a bioweapon just run rampant for months in our country without any type of reaction from the government. No testing, no quarantines, no confinements, no nothing. And for the most part, just the strict minimum until they knew everybody was contaminated. And then, and only then, did they decide to lock things down. Because the plan here is to kill everybody, not to save everybody. Understand the difference. Understand the difference. And never forget when these people show you who they are. I mean, they genocided the Kurds. Why do you think they did that? That's who these people are. And, they can say whatever and they can send people money, and that's wonderful. I'm sure nobody's going to refuse the $1,000 that they send and whatever. But at the end of the day, everybody got infected because of that. And many millions of people are going to die because of that. And it's going to make the Holocaust look like, an opening act, essentially. And if you check out documentaries like Hitler and the Occult, and you follow the Nazi gold, you look at the television today, it's 24/7 product placement for the dark side. You see the face of the devil coming out of the cloud here on 9/11. Who can forget the BBC Building 7? She's got a devil horn right there. The Matrix is speaking to you if you can decode the language, ladies and gentlemen. And we've been talking about, these faces from another dimension that show up in these, mass murder events. And, it truly is, the dark side out there. Demons on television, behind the scenes, body snatching people. It's literally the pages of the Bible playing out before your very eyes. Everything you buy has got the mark of the beast on it, that UPC code. They want you to get the mark of the beast. And for the first time in 2,000 years, we can see what this beast system is going to look like. The Matrix, the works, ladies and gentlemen. And, breaking news. What's happening out there right now, it's another 9/11, but just bigger, much bigger in scale. I think that should be obvious to everyone. But now the question is, what can be done? And, if anything can be done, we need to do it. Reverse the momentum. Obviously, this virus is going to spread and wipe out the big cities. Okay, well, let's contain it there. And, everybody out there has got to be a superhero in their community. The commies are coming. They're going to be bringing the goon squads. They're going to try and liquidate your town. Be ready for them, like Red Dawn. How many people remember the movie Red Dawn with the commies and stuff like that? Set up your choke points. Set up your honey traps, right? Start thinking of your positions. Get a crew together. You know what I mean? And remember what they did to, Lavoy Finicum and all those people? They tried to, honey trap at the Malheur standoff. Remember that? Honey traps, bitches. Oh, we're over here. Come and get us. You know what I mean? And there you go. End of story. One at a time. They'll run out of goons eventually. But what they want is for people to basically, turn themselves in. They want people to, go to the FEMA camp for treatment. And maybe they will treat you, maybe they won't. And I think people will just have to make that determination for themselves. Have you known anybody that's come back from these centers? Not yet. And, we'll find out. But chances are, ladies and gentlemen, is that sooner rather than later, they're going to tell people, well, it seems like 20% of the population just never heals from this. A certain segment, they've got this, whatever. We need to contain them. They're never going to get better. They pose a risk to everyone else. There'll be that kind of rhetoric, that kind of spin. And little by little, people are just going to disappear. Because there is no cure for this, airborne AIDS, this bioweapon, this weaponized virus. It wasn't meant to be cured, ladies and gentlemen. They might sell you the medicine. They might sell you a treatment program and the like to keep you going for an extra year or two. But chances are this is going to eat everybody up like Ebola, little by little. And at the end of the story, we know how this ends. Most Americans won't make it. And it's been, their plan since the beginning. They've planned this out since the beginning, ladies and gentlemen. Just like 9/11, way in advance. And, we're seeing the predictive programming, in The Simpsons and the like. I mean, this is all part of the script. And in a couple years, people will be doing like this new 9/11 kind of truth movement, except it'll be, the Wuhan truth movement. And they'll be telling everybody, oh, don't listen to those people. Don't listen to those people. We were perfect. We did everything perfectly. They're going to try and rewrite history and make it seem like the epidemic really just started before the lockdown. But this epidemic started 2 months ago. And, they're not telling everybody, everything about how this disease progresses. How often do you hear them talk about the systemic part of the infection? Very little. But that will come out. And when it does, it's going to change the dynamics. Because there is no recovery. China is still in lockdown. And the people that they released, as recovered, they actually went back into quarantine because they were relapsing. And that reminds us, we wanted to go back to this graphic here. You probably can't make this out, but you can check it out on our website. But going back to Germany's stats again, if we go to the recovered column, out of the 8,600 cases, they've only listed 67 people as recovered, which is different than other countries. Like countries like Italy or China, they're like, 68,000, 2,900, 5,000 have recovered, thousands have recovered, everything's going to be okay. You look at Germany's numbers, it's like nobody's recovering. They're still all active cases, and they seem to know what they're doing because they've had, few deaths, very few deaths for the numbers. So everything tells us that, there's something, very creepy going on about this virus. Much worse than what they're telling you, obviously. What's this situation? I think another drop dead virus victim, but we're not getting the best angle of it. Draconian shutdown could last 18 months, according to the mainstream press. So yesterday it was, August. Before that it was April. And see how the story just keeps getting worse and worse. It'll go away with, with this, the springtime temperatures. It'll be gone by April. And then, it'll be gone by August. That was like, yesterday, right? And the market crashed. And then today, 18 months. And that doesn't seem so bad because, yesterday was August. So what's the difference? August, 18 months. So 18 months would be like, basically January 2022. You know what I mean? Almost. So years of this. But in fact, it's going to be forever. Forever. And, every winter we're going to be going through this. People are going to be hibernating. Nobody's going to go out. There's going to be, tons of people that die. I mean, whatever's going to happen now is one thing. But once we get a full winter of this virus, I mean, that's just going to be something else. And that's coming for, next year. It'll be interesting to see how many survive. Nobody can say for sure. But, you look at the sheeple out there, how unprepared they are, and how, how dumb, many people are out there, victims of public education. You can't imagine that, many of them will survive unless they decide to distribute the antidote. What's this New York Times saying? Trump administration has said coronavirus testing is available to all, but the following people in the country told us that this is not the case. And that's the reports that we're seeing on the ground. Coronavirus testing has been spotty. There's certain drive-thrus right now, but they can only do maybe like 400 tests a day. I mean, it just pales in comparison to other countries. The Canadians are testing like 15,000 people a day. And the like. Understanding the Schumann resonance and how electronic devices are making you sick. Get rid of the EMF in your life, ladies and gentlemen. U.S. Marines assemble tents at a quarantine site being set up near Camp Pendleton. So, we're going to see all sorts of quarantine sites. This is action on the Greek border. The refugees are trying to invade. Let's see. Hong Kong has been isolating people for nearly 2 months. It wasn't perfect, but their numbers are far less. They've got about 150 cases. See, this is what, Trump should have done day one. Once they found out there was a Fukushima that happened, they should have been, look, you're not going to like this, but this is going to be a whole lot better than what we're facing now. And, had he done that and scared the stock markets, but there were hardly any cases and it never got over 150, 200 cases, the market would have recovered. The country would have recovered in a couple of months. There might have been, little outbreaks and clusters, more or less, but it would have been much more manageable. Here, they've just, they've opened the floodgates. Part of the plan. Ladies and gentlemen, no excuses. Don't make excuses for people that are trying to kill you. You know what I mean? Pennsylvania closing all liquor stores. Oh, that's going to help. Close the bars, leave the liquor stores open, at least a drive-through or something. People need whiskey. That's another thing. They don't want you getting the whiskey. They don't want you getting anything that might help you out. And whiskey, hard liquor will, open up the airways and degrease the lungs. Everything's best in moderation. It's not an excuse to become an alcoholic, but a little bit certainly can help, and the like. Anyone with a functioning brain knew the UK surrender plan, like pre-March White House surrender plan, equated to national suicide. The entire strategy for fighting this virus was based on false analysis, scientists advising the government now say the UK only realized in the last few days that this virus strategy would result in the deaths of hundreds of thousands, not hundreds of thousands, hundreds of millions in our country. And here's a little Simpsons humor for you. This is going to be the worst month of 2020. January, February, March. The worst months so far. The worst months are yet to come. How bad will it get? Chances are it's going to get real ugly in a couple weeks. And, it'll probably last, the first wave will probably last, 2-3 weeks, depending on how bad they lock things down. But more than likely, a week after the lockdown, we're going to start seeing people just basically die in their homes, in their apartments, and they'll be extracted by ambulance or white vans, picked up like garbage, and that'll be the end of the story for most people. Day 6 of the quarantine, you'll be doing stuff like this, like the Cookie Monster. Look at that. How's everybody doing out there? You guys doing good? What's this, jailbreak in Italy? Yeah, they don't want to get the virus. They heard the stories. So, society's going to break down like this. And of course they escaped. So, if they've all escaped the prisons, what are the prisons going to be used for? What's happening in the Netherlands? 50% of cases are under 50. And here's some liquidation at New Orleans. Well, this is just kind of like a dry run, getting people off the streets, little by little, kettling them into the slaughterhouse. So, there you go. More testimonies. Sick people can't get tests. Julian Assange must be freed now. Still can't get tested. And what's this? This was interesting. Ventilator maker says that they can ramp up their production fivefold by 500%. But they haven't received an order to do so. No order, no ramp up of production. Not even now. So they need the ventilators bad, but they haven't placed the orders. They need the hospitals bad, but they haven't built the hospitals. They need, a Manhattan Project. They didn't do that. They need to stop interstate travel, even, inter-county travel. They didn't do that. They didn't do anything. They just let it in, and they're just like, oh, that's awesome. You know what I mean? What's going on in Wuhan right now? Seems like they're still burning a lot of bodies out there. And it's still a dead zone. And the entire country is pretty much still a dead zone. So, and if it shut down the Chinese, imagine what it's going to do to other people. So, just wait, ladies and gentlemen. Just wait for it. Prepare for the last stand. Prepare for the worst case scenario so that you won't be surprised. San Francisco, full lockdown. Should be shutting down the media. Who wants to play poker with this guy? Ladies and gentlemen, you guys ready for it? You guys got enough to play poker? Would you ever go all in? Is the question. And we'll have to leave it there for this broadcast. We'll try and do a show where we just hang out and interact in the chat. It's kind of difficult to do that and broadcast a show at the same time, because all of a sudden you just start focusing on the chat and not on the news stories. But we'll come back and do something, hang out with everybody. We hope that you got your supplies. Be sure to check out the video description on, things that you should be shopping for on top of, guns, ammo, liquor, food, water, toilet paper, and the like. But definitely make managing this disease your priority, not your hobbies, not your pastimes, and the like. Do whatever it takes to survive out there. And herbal anti-inflammatories will make a huge difference in your life. And as soon as you start letting the inflammation run away from you, then the lungs start filling up with fluid, and you get short of breath, and you start drowning right there. So anti-inflammatory is just not the Advil kind. We'll leave it there for this broadcast. Until the next time, ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening to this, you are the resistance.